So you did it. You listened to a few episodes of Joe Rogan, and now you're convinced you can start a podcast. What's up, everyone? This is Matt from the Thanks for Playing podcast, and I'm going to teach you how to start your own podcast in 10 easy steps. So the first major step you're going to want to take care of is figuring out what kind of podcast you're going to be. You're going to have a co-host. You're going to be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. This is going to be topical with whatever's going on in the zeitgeist. Or you're going to cover separate individual topics that aren't even really newsworthy sometimes. Now, the second big step you're going to want to take care of is figuring out what kind of software you're going to use to record and what kind of hardware. As you can see behind me here, I have a very simple USB mic. And while I don't think our audio is the best out there, for a USB mic that was $60 attached to a microphone arm that was $10, it's pretty good. We'll include links to these microphones that we have here in the description, but you don't have to go all out at first to get good audio. You can easily produce a high quality podcast hardware-wise for less than $100 on one host's end. So this is the microphone that we use here on the Thanks for Playing podcast. It is a Samson Q2U. Retail, typically runs anywhere between about $60 to $70. We will include links for it in the description. So if you like how this sounds, might be the microphone for you. And for software-wise, there are ample softwares out there you can use that are very reasonably priced as well. If you want to go super easy with things, you can use Audacity and record your conversations while you're talking in Discord and then overlap the audio. If you want to get a little bit fancier, you can do what we use, which is Riverside.fm, which is a really great browser-based software where you can record in the browser. It records everything locally as well, so it's much higher quality than Zoom because it's not, fogged up by going over the internet. When you get the local tracks, it's like it's recording straight to your computer. So the next major step you're going to want to think about is prepping your social media accounts. Now, what I really advise here is making sure all of your social media accounts are integrated with the same handle. This means having the same @ on Instagram, the same @ on Twitter and TikTok, or really whatever social media platforms you're choosing to use. So great, you've figured out what kind of hardware you're going to use to record, you've figured out what kind of recording software you're going to use, but now you got to think about what kind of podcast hosting service you're going to use. There's a million out there. There's Anchor FM, there's one called Podbean. You can even just use SoundCloud or even just put them onto YouTube. But what you're really going to want to do is find one that has what's called an RSS feed in it, and that will allow you to push your episode out to various platforms very easily. For example, here at Thanks for Playing podcast, we use Red Circle, and like most good RSS feeds and podcast hosting websites, it allows us to publish to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, really anywhere you can get your podcasts. So find one that works for you. There's a lot of good free options. You shouldn't have to pay starting out, and see which one works best for you. So congrats, you completed the first few steps to starting your own podcast. You have your name and your idea ready to go. You have all your hardware ready, all the software you're going to use. You know where you're going to publish your podcast, what RSS feed, how podcast hosting service it's going to go out to, and you have all your social media accounts ready as well. Next big step, record your podcast. Big advice here. When you first publish your podcast, put it out there to the world to see. Make sure you have at least 3 or 4 episodes already ready to go and ready to publish from the onset. This will give your listeners a really good library to go through and really help get them involved in the podcast and really interested, rather than just starting with one episode that maybe it's not your strongest episode, so they kind of get turned off from the get-go. Having 3 gives them a solid library to go through, and it really gets serotonin going for them and serotonin going for you when you see your numbers go up. So great, now that you have published your first episodes, the first thing you're going to want to do is painstakingly stare at your downloads and wonder, why aren't you going up faster? But hey, if you're not happy with those numbers still, don't worry, we got something for you. You're going to really want to make sure you zone in on social media for your podcast. This will include things like posting on Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, whatever it may be. The important thing here is consistency and making sure you're engaging for 1, your audience, and 2, also engaging with other creators. You never know what kind of good collab you may get just from commenting on someone's picture online. And then finally, you're going to check your downloads again, because why not? You're obsessed. And when it comes to actually acquiring the guests for your podcast, don't be afraid to really go out there and just reach out to anyone. As long as you're being respectful, no one will be that upset if you hit up their DMs or email or Twitter, whatever it may be. You never know who's going to say yes, so it never hurts to reach out. Fun fact, we actually got our first really big podcast guest, Dennis Dyack, simply by just commenting on one of his YouTube videos. So you never know what'll stick. It's always worth trying. Finally, for step number 9, you will once again painstakingly check those podcast downloads. Congratulations, you made it to step 10, which is consistency. In the creative world and in podcasts in particular, you're not going to see the kind of growth you want to see right away, probably. You're going to have days where you're just checking those downloads over and over, especially on your release days, believe me. But remember, at the end of the day, consistency is key. The more you grow your library, the better chance you have of acquiring and retaining new listeners once they do actually choose to finally check out your podcast and to see what's cracking. Keep at it. You never know. One day, you too may get your own MeUndies sponsorship. All right, everyone. This has been Thanks for Playing. Catch you next time.